When we brought home our first pygmy goats, they lived among and around the horses, but our horse fences did not keep them contained. So most of the time our goats, Felix and Festus, were knocking on our front door with their horns, and one morning, somehow, we woke up to them in our living room. How did we not hear the tick-tack of their feet across the floor? Well, who knows, but they would venture onto our car hoods, and my poor flowers never saw the light of day. They wandered around with the dogs and spent the day helping us around our place. Seriously, one of my fondest memories was from one hot afternoon when we called for the dogs to load up in the back of the pickup. The two younger dogs happily jumped into the back of the pickup, and that third older dog needed help. So she was assisted into the back, and then those two pygmy goats lined up for their assistance. Their legs just weren't short enough to make it up there. And boy, were they mad, absolutely indignant that they were left behind. They couldn't believe that we had done such a thing. And if we headed down the lane without them while their heads were buried in the caragana bushes, they would come running and bleating as fast as their little 8-inch legs could carry them, a blur of motion until they were happily trotting beside us. Enough reminiscing. This may not be what you desire for your goats, and in many living arrangements, having goats just wandering around without a fence to protect them can be dangerous. In most cases, it's probably best to have a very secure and well thought out fencing arrangement. And these fencing options that I'm going to talk about are also great for other small livestock as well. You can find a lot of videos on this channel and information on my site, A Life of Heritage, that will teach you about goat care. And if you are raising goats, your goat management binder linked below will keep you organized. It's full of to-do lists, checklists, record-keeping sheets, and just resource pages that will get your new or old goat herd off to a terrific start. But right now, our focus is fencing for goats. So where do you start in building a goat fence? First, you must think ahead. You will want to think about your herd size. Now be honest here. How many goats do or will you have? Is there a buck? And if you have one or are bringing home a buck, the fencing between the does and the bucks should be put together well and secure enough to keep them apart. And if you will be having kids in the future, will you be weaning them? If so, you will need a separate area to wean them. The pens that you will end up needing are actually just determined and based on the answers to the questions that I just asked. You will also want to think about your water troughs. You really want to place the water bucket or the trough in a place that will be easy to fill and that can maybe even possibly water 2 pens at once. And you will also want to determine where your gates will be. Placing gates in the corners where they will swing to the fence or wall makes herding easier if goats do get out. Now that you've thought about how you should set up your pens and fencing, you need to choose the fencing that will best suit you, your property, and your situation. Right now, I'll talk about several options that you can consider. You will then want to check the fencing prices, just weigh the pros and cons, and then just get her done. One option that you can consider is sheep or cattle panels. Although our main fence is made of pallets, we have a handful of sheep panels to use for temporary fencing, or when we have fenced off an area maybe outside the main pen that we would like grazed. This is a great option because they are sturdy and will withstand a goat actually just standing up on them and butting them. Not that the welds in the corners don't ever break, but for the most part they are very sturdy. Woven wire is another good option. It may be a more expensive option option and more labor intensive, but it will look nice and last a long time. I have a wire gate in place now, and my ornery white goat Festus has decided it's a wonderful place to butt his lovely long horns on, and the wires are now bent and misshapen. So this may be something just to keep in mind. And woven wire over time does get bent down and misshapen, and somehow the dirt ends up seemingly to like eat it up into the ground. So if you do choose to do this option, just know that that could be the outcome after years of use. Electric fence may be an option for you as well. Goats will jump, squeeze, crawl under anything they can get their head through. So an electric wire at the proper placement can keep them contained. If they are crawling under, then just experiment with where the bottom wire is located to prevent them from crawling under. In our area, our grass is 4 feet tall and shorts out the wires. The grass could be mowed regularly, I know that, but all our good intentions never get that project done. This wouldn't be a good option for our area or just our situation because we can hardly keep our lawn mowed in the summer months for our own lawn. If you like free and upcycling, then pallets may be just for you. When we expanded our goat herd, we built pallet fences and put up goat-proof gates so they rarely get out. It's no secret that I love pallets. It's essentially free wood, except for the labor to take the pallets apart, or in this case, of just building the fence. It's virtually labor-free. I have a link below for you to see how I built our pallet fence. But to be completely honest, although this pallet fence was free and did last us for about 5 years, it's really getting run down right now. The boards do get brittle and do break over time, and they do start to lean as the goats just stand on them. Just know that pallets are a great start. They will get you to a place where you can then make a more maybe permanent plan. But over time, they will break down and maybe not look the best. When it comes down to it, I have been very happy with this pallet fence. When all the boards are there, it is quite goat-proof, and now the only reason our goats get out is if a certain adorable boy or girl forgets to latch the gate. It seems inevitable, however, that goats will manage to get out somehow, some way. So have an as good as you can get goat-proof fence ready before you bring your goats home. As you can see here, this is some cattle panels, and you just noticed that Faith stuck her head through. And you can see over here is some woven wire, and you can tell they have been standing on it. It is bent, and so that just shows how it can get bent down, and she can get her head through it. So you can imagine if she had horns, what would happen if she stuck her head through. She would definitely get stuck with horns. So as you are choosing your fencing options, you need to think about that. Do your goats have horns? And if they do, you need to choose fencing that they won't be continually getting stuck in. But because of the way woven wire is woven together, when they stand on it, it doesn't break apart. And so that is one advantage, because goats will stand on fences. So one disadvantage is that over time it will start to just bend down, and it's amazing how just down at the bottom it will start, the grass will kind of, pull it down, and it just starts to sag and get into the dirt, and can over time just start sagging into the dirt. So that's another just thing, I guess maybe a con at that, to think about as you're choosing. Here's something else to consider when you're choosing the size of, or how tall your cattle panels or your sheep panels are. So here, what would this one be? 3 feet maybe? And then we have behind me one that is, so I'm 5'2", and so this is 4 foot maybe. And then this one down here, you know, comes up to my waist, and so it's pretty short. But we have some of these this height. My little guy here, my shadow, my Nigerian dwarf, he can jump this. He can, I don't know, scale it. I've never actually seen him do it, but I know he can get out. When we put this one up though, he was not getting out anymore. So that will just show that even small goats can get over these small ones. So when you choose, I would say spend the money and get the tall ones. Also, my buck here, Corin, he's a mini Nubian. He's pretty big, though. He's much bigger than Shadow. He scaled like he was a horse at the races. When my does were in heat, he scaled a 4-foot gate. I mean, he jumped it like it was nothing. So that is just another thing. When you're making your fences, you gotta make them so that they can't be jumped. Or when you do if you have your does right next to your bucks like I do, you have to make it so they can't get over. And one option would be to, he's trying to chew on my camera. One option would be to put an electric fence at the top around, you know, so you'd have your fence and then the electric wire above that. So just as you're planning out, think through the options and think through all of that so that you don't end up having a wreck. I'm gonna be honest, our pigs are really, really nice pigs. We are blessed in that sense. And so we actually had my pallets were what we used as my two sows were growing. We used the pallets to contain them. And it did get to a point though where they were getting rather large and strong, and they started pushing around the pallets. The pallets held, but probably for not much longer, and that is why we, for the pigs, went with this fence. So it is just a board fence, and thankfully we were blessed. These were just old boards that weren't being used, and so we were able to acquire them without any cost, and so that's a huge blessing, and probably won't happen again. But actually, in the future, this is what we want to do our entire property with, as far even for the goats. So we have another pig pen that we want to build with this because it is so strong, and we went with the really thick boards, and that is why we chose that size, was because of just pigs are strong and destructive. But it looks really nice, and it turned out really nice. So we're really happy with that, and we actually want to, we're planning to use this for our goats as well. So it's just a matter of saving up and buying a little bit at a time and just slowly getting it done that way. But this is another option that you can definitely do if you can find somebody that is tearing down their fencing and they're just old boards and they don't want them anymore. Definitely get them. Be on the lookout for things like that, or save up, you know, each month, budget so much a month that you can buy so many boards and work on building just piece at a time. I know that sounds like that's not enough progress, but you'd be amazed in 12 months how far you would have gotten doing that. And really, you know, if you don't do anything and 12 months later, if you haven't done anything, you haven't made any progress. But if each month you can make a little bit of progress in a year, in 2 years, you will be so pleased that you actually did do that. So that is definitely an option, and don't discredit that. Something else to consider is that panels this size, little babies can get through, like this one. She is supposed to be over there with Mama, and she's climbed through these panels like that. Here she is. So that's something to think of as you are building as well. If it is going to be housing small goats and kids this size, these cattle panels, they can get through. So just be aware of that. This is the gate I was talking about. It's a really nice gate and it looks very pretty, but but Festus really wants to pound his horns on it, and I've gotten it straightened out pretty good right now. But that's why this pallet is here, is because he would get it all bent out of shape. And actually one year, because it was kind of misshapen, Corin, he got his head through it, and then he weaseled his body through into the dough side. And so obviously I didn't want that, and had to figure that out. So that's why this pallet is here. That is why this pallet is here right now. It is the reinforcement until I can figure out how to reinforce it better. So you have 5 options: panels, woven wire, electric fence, pallets, and wood boards. And one of those options may just be the perfect solution for you and your goats. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button and the bell to be notified when more great content is uploaded. I'll see you in the next video.